Something
Something
just occurred
happened.
in Austria that caught the entire tennis world completely off guard. Not the commentators, not the experts, not even the most dedicated fans who follow every single update on the WTA circuit. A sitting president halted his entire schedule, cleared his entire day, and broke long-standing protocol, all for a 2-0 year. Old tennis player from the Philippines. The second this story spread across social media, the whole sport felt a seismic shift. That is not an overstatement. That is precisely what took place. Today, we're going to break down every single layer of this event, because this isn't just another feel-good story that the media hyped for 24 hours and then moved on from. This is a powerful, intentional message about where real influence in women's tennis is heading and exactly who is wielding it. Let's begin with the fundamentals. You need to grasp what it truly signifies when a European head of state decides to set aside protocol. Alexander van der Bellen is the president of Austria. He works from the Hofburg Palace in Vienna. His daily agenda isn't casually arranged over morning coffee. It is meticulously planned weeks or even months ahead, coordinated with security, diplomatic channels, and multiple government departments. Every single movement is calculated. Every stop carries political significance. These are not relaxed individuals with flexible routines. So when President van der Bellen consciously chose to interrupt that tightly controlled system, step outside the strict boundaries of European diplomacy, and personally greet Alexandra Eala before the Upper Austria Ladies' Linz Open, those familiar with how such systems function instantly understood that something remarkable had just unfolded. This was not a staged photo op arranged by his communications team. This was a deliberate, thoughtful, and meaningful decision. The question that should now be at the front of your mind is straightforward. Why her? Why this specific athlete at this exact time? To answer that, you must separate the tennis player from the larger phenomenon, because Alexandra Eala represents both, and you cannot truly understand one without the other. On the court, she is the genuine article, a left-handed baseline player developed at the Rafa Nadal Academy, specifically built for the demanding grind of clay court tennis in a way few players her age can match. Her topspin is heavy and penetrating. Her court coverage is tireless. Her mental strength under pressure is the kind coaches spend entire careers trying and often failing to build. She delivered back-to-back strong performances at major hard-court events in the United States and looked completely at home, not like someone barely hanging on, but like someone who belonged there all along. Her rankings show it. Her results confirm it. But what truly sets Alexandra Eala apart goes far beyond her technique between the lines. She brings something extra onto every court she steps, on something unrelated to racket speed, serve accuracy, or footwork. She carries an entire nation with her. More than 100 million Filipinos, plus a vast diaspora spread across every continent. One of the most passionate, loyal, and emotionally invested fan bases in global sports. When she wins, it's not merely a point on the scoreboard. It creates waves that reach homes in Dubai, Los Angeles, London, Riyadh, and Sydney. Families stay awake through the night. Group chats light up. That level of human connection translates into something governments, tournament organizers, and broadcasters value enormously. It turns into hard numbers. Broadcast rights in Southeast Asia surge when she plays. Sponsors eager to reach that audience step forward. Ticket sales increase. Hotels book up. Tournaments that might otherwise remain regional suddenly command a global spotlight. The Linz Open is already a respectable event, but Alexandra Eala's participation elevates it onto the world stage. President van der Bellen and his team clearly understand this. Austria isn't. By extending the highest level of official recognition, they are sending a clear message to every Filipino fan watching from anywhere on the planet. This country sees her, respects her, and is proud to welcome her. That is soft power at its finest. That is diplomacy through sport, delivered in one of its most graceful and powerful forms. Now, change your viewpoint. Step out of the presidential palace and into the players' locker room at the Linz Open. Imagine the atmosphere. You have experienced European players who have battled through countless clay seasons. You have young hopefuls trying to steady their nerves before their opening matches. Then the news spreads. The president of Austria personally came to welcome one of the players in the draw. Not as part of a formal ceremony, but as a direct, personal gesture. Consider how that single act reshapes the mental environment of the entire tournament before a single ball is even hit. Tennis is won and lost in the mind just as much as on the court. Every top player and coach will tell you that confidence is a genuine tactical advantage. Intimidation doesn't only happen during the match, it builds in the days and hours leading up to it. When the head of state of the host country has already signaled through actions, not words, that one player in the draw is operating on an entirely different level, that message hits differently depending on which side you're on. For Eala, it becomes fuel, it becomes validation, it silences any lingering doubts and replaces them with sharp, powerful clarity. She already believed she belonged. Now, the president of Austria has told the entire world the same thing. For everyone else in that locker room, it creates a completely different reality. You cannot erase that image. You cannot forget it. And even in the most focused professional mind, it plants a seed of doubt that is incredibly hard to remove before you walk onto the court. This is why breaking protocol carries weight far beyond its diplomatic meaning. It becomes a psychological force with real, measurable impact on how the tournament unfolds. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. The Linz Open is not the final destination, it is only the beginning. The European clay season stretches all the way to Roland Garros in Paris, one of the toughest, most demanding, and most prestigious arenas in tennis. The red clay of Europe is a completely different beast from the hard courts of the American swing. It challenges your legs, your lungs, your patience, and your technique in unique ways. Players who rule on hard courts have arrived in Europe and fallen apart. The surface punishes errors differently. It rewards endurance, heavy spin, and the ability to survive long, bruising rallies. It is a test of character as much as skill. And this is precisely where Eala's preparation becomes her greatest strength. The Rafa Nadal Academy didn't train her as a hard-court player who occasionally plays clay. It shaped her as a clay court specialist from the start, someone who understands the geometry, rhythm, and demands of this surface at a depth most players don't reach until they've spent years struggling on it. She doesn't just play on red clay, she thinks in its language in a way that sets her apart from her generation. The difficult transition that unsettles others is the environment she was built for. And she is entering this clay swing carrying something no amount of training can create: momentum, global attention, presidential recognition, and a powerful psychological advantage that comes from knowing the entire world is watching and expecting her to shine. That combination is extremely rare. In more than 20 years of closely following this sport, you can count on one hand the number of times a player has arrived at the European clay season with this exact kind of presence and weight. That is why the comparisons are beginning to appear. That is why longtime observers are using words they usually reserve carefully. The established stars of the WTA have ruled for years. They are exceptional athletes who have earned their positions through relentless effort. No one is taking that away from them. But every generation eventually produces a force that doesn't wait for its turn. It creates its own moment. It announces itself on its own terms. And what we witnessed in Austria this week was exactly that kind of announcement. Not through a press release, not through a sponsorship, not through social media, but through a head of state who stopped everything because the moment required it. Alexandra Eala did not request that moment. She earned it. She earned it through the quality of her game, through the dignity with which she represents her country, and through the enormous cultural impact she has created at an age when most players are still searching for their identity on the court. The Austrian protocol break is the clearest public sign yet of something that has been steadily growing for the past 2 years. The sport is evolving, the balance of power is shifting, and the player at the heart of that shift is about to step onto the red clay of Europe for what could become the most important chapter of her young career. Now, I want to hear from you. When a European president breaks decades of diplomatic tradition to personally honor a young Filipino tennis player, does that change how you view her chances this clay season? Do you believe the psychological advantage she now carries into every locker room is something her opponents can easily overcome? And is Roland Garros the most legendary clay court stage in the world already destined to become part of the next chapter in this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Be detailed, be real, and push back if you disagree. This discussion deserves more than shallow opinions. If this analysis gave you something new to think about, hit like and subscribe, because the clay season is only just getting started and we'll be here for every single moment of it.